Well, as we head into the new year, one of the things maybe you don't spend a lot of time thinking about, perhaps might be worth thinking about, is what changes tax-wise heading into 2026. So the new year's rolling around, and we thought we'll go to our resident CPA, Harvey Bienenstock, and bring you up to date on some of the changes that have happened, perhaps federally, provincially, and see what you should be expecting. And he is on the line. Harvey, thanks so much for being here this afternoon.
Right. Great afternoon.
Yeah, let's start by talking about on the federal side, okay? So what are we dealing with here? Contributions, Canada Pension Plan, all that kind of stuff.
Okay, well, on the Fed side, the good news is they reduced the bracket on the first tranche of income up to $55,000 by 1%. So if you apply the tax bracket of the first bracket, 14% instead of 15%, you save 1%. Also, they reduced their unemployment insurance from like 1.31 to 1.32 to 1.31, which is a very, very small saving. Aside from that, there's really nothing on the Fed side, and the carbon taxes were eliminated for nationally, but we pay in Quebec because I guess we're with California. That federally there's not much, but Quebec there was a lot.
Well, let me go back to the carbon tax situation because Quebec was kind of a special case. You mentioned the fact that we're tied in with California. Given what's happened federally, does anything change in Quebec?
No, we're tied in with Quebec. Actually, the carbon tax go down because what happened in California, because people buy credits and there's not much demand for credits, so I think the rates are going a little bit down just to attract people to bid on those things. But federally, they eliminated the carbon, which was strange because people were making money on this carbon tax. Yes, they had to pay, individuals paid the carbon tax at the pumps, but they got rebate checks every 3 months. So they got their money back, and the only ones who ended up paying were industries, and that stayed. So, I mean, it's a 50-50, one hand back with the other. It was really strange. It was a procedural thing more than anything else.
Okay, let's deal with something else that I'd heard a while ago, payroll taxes and the fact that those will be going down. What's this about?
Yeah, well, in Quebec, you get payroll taxes on your paycheck. There's several of them. Besides income tax, you have the Quebec pension plan, which you put in and then you claim when you're 60 or older. There's the unemployment insurance, which is a federal plan. And then there's the Quebec maternity plan, which is part of the EI system. But in the Feds, you're paying in the EI. In Quebec, you're paying two premiums, the EI and the QPIP. So the rates are down slightly. Quebec was supposed to go up to 10.6. Is now down to 10.4, so it's like 0.2%. The maternity plan went from 0.49 to 0.43. So, and the EI again from 1.31 to 1.30. But so that's the good news is the rates are down. But the bad news is that the income that's subject to that rate has gone up by $3,500. So if you're at the making good money, you're not saving any money. You're paying more because the rate is now applied to more income. And the ugly part of all of this is that even though you're forced to pay into these plans on your paycheck, the EI, the QPP, the QPIP, annual paying tax on any benefits you eventually get, you get no credit or deduction on the Quebec income tax return, even though the feds let you deduct these amounts. Quebec says no. So nobody ever gets any credit for these forced payroll taxes.
Okay,
it's kind of strange.
And that's not changed this year, even though the payroll taxes...
No, it's been many years. People don't realize it when you do your tax return and you figure the software does it, and then you realize, wait a second, there's nothing on the Quebec return for this stuff. Now, the other things that are interesting in Quebec, the drug insurance plan has gone up from $744 to $766. So everyone is forced to enroll into this drug plan. And your driver's license is going up by about $50 because of the Highway Victims Fund. Yeah, well, we had a reduction because there were no claims under this, reduced claims under this Highway Victims Indemnity Fund. Your license had an insurance premium attached to it to pay for any claims under road accidents, and there weren't that many, so you had a rebate in previous years that they've eliminated. So now you're going up to like $50 a year.
All right.
And also, the bad news again, Quebec child care expenses used to be you get credit for children up to 16. That's now down to 14. And your credit was anywhere from like 67 to 78%. And now, if you have a kid who's going to camp or has a nanny and is between 14 and 16, you're not going to get any deduction for those credit for any child care. But the worst thing, if I may say, is that Quebec is now mirroring the federal Form T-1135, which is reporting of any foreign assets you own and the income you've derived thereon. Now, feds have this, and the government gets all this information because foreign assets also include any stocks or bonds you own that are listed on U.S. exchanges. So if you own any U.S. stocks, including, interlisted Canadian banks and insurance that are listed on New York, these are now characterized as U.S. assets, and you have to report them on this form for the feds. If you don't report it, you're going to be huge penalties and confiscation of assets per year. Now, the feds already get all this information from the brokers. You get T3s, T5s, T5008, so they're not going to get any more information. I suspect it's just a banana peel they're throwing down, so if you forget to file or you're incorrect, they're going to get huge penalties out of you. So that's really a really ugly thing.
So you've described the situation where, despite what people may have heard in terms of cuts, we mentioned the payroll thing, at the end of the day, you're not really going to end up saving very much, if you save anything at all, given all the other things that are going up.
Well, if you figure that, any government that's strapped for cash, whenever they introduce something and they proclaim the goodies on it, you got to be a little skeptical, because they can't give away too much money, and they'll find another way to get it back, and they have.
All right. What about on the provincial side with the indexation rate for personal income? What's that?
Yeah, that's the same as the feds. Inflation has gone up by 2%, so they're going to index your personal exemptions by the 2% and also the brackets, so that even though you're getting more money because of inflation, they're not going to take it away on the tax rate. So you're going to get a 2% break, which is around equal to the inflation rate.
Okay. I guess my other question would be, and this doesn't necessarily have to do with new rules that have been applied or not applied, with respect to people who are considering taking or not taking their pensions, anything change there?
Well, as of a couple of years ago, it's a fabulous idea to take your pension as soon as you can. First of all, the government forced you to pay into the Quebec pension plan even if you were collecting a pension. So people who were still working after they applied for their pension were forced to pay almost like $9,000 into the plan, for which they get $30 a month more in the future years. But first they eliminated that for anyone over 60, anyone over 70, so that if you were working over 70, you were exempt from the plan. And now if you apply for pensions and are collecting a pension, you don't have to put any money in. And you can start taking your pension at age 60. So if you qualify and you're over 60, apply. Yeah, you'll have a penalty of like 0.7% per month, but you're going to be getting like 93% of your pension earlier. So you should take it earlier, and you won't have to pay into this plan whether you're still working for an employer or you're self-employed. So I would recommend everybody take the pension as soon as they can, because as we pointed out previously, you don't know how long you're going to live, so you might as well start collecting as soon as you can. Your spouse will get a survivor benefit, and you can stop paying into these plans, which again, they're up to like $9,000 a year now.
Now, still a couple of questions with respect to that. What about the argument that, if you're still working, even though you're eligible to collect that pension, if you don't really need the money, why not hold off? Does that make sense to wait until later to get it?
I personally say no, because the benefit is you're going to get like 0.6% more per month. So you're going to get a 7% pension more if you delay. But then again, if you're delaying, you're not collecting anything. So foregoing that 7%, you're losing 100% of what you could get today. And if you're penalized by 0.7%, like 8% a year, so by not collecting it, you're not collecting 92% of your pension. Okay. So again, you're getting it early, it's indexed, and you don't have to pay into the plan, which again is saving you $9,000, well, $4,500 personally, and your boss is saving $4,500.
But still, at the end of the day, that's taxable income.
Well, yeah, but again, you had a deduction when you paid in. Not in Quebec. You never got a deduction. But again, it's income. And again, why would you frown on collecting any kind of income? And again, if you pop off early or if you don't collect for many years, the government wins.
Right. We leave it at that. Harvey, always appreciate a great insight. Thank you so much and happy holidays.
My pleasure, Aaron. Anytime. Thank you.
Introducing Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio. Hosted by Bryan Adams himself.
Join me for an insider look on a wild ride through 40 years of global rock and roll.
Bryan Adams Radio. Now available on the free iHeartRadio app. Or ask your smart speaker to play Bryan Adams Radio on iHeartRadio.
Who's ready to rock?